If I were the Prime Minister, I would just put all my money in a single mouth, which is education. Why can't a plumber be paid same as an assistant professor in a university? If you are in a journalism school, you probably are learning nothing in your school that you are enrolled in. You learn more. But skills don't build nation. What builds nation is skill plus skill. China did not have any high-speed rail network. And I'm talking about high speed is something like 300 kilometers or 250 kilometers and above. We don't have a single in India. China has actually grown leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. Their best right now is competing with the best in the US.
So today I'm joined by Professor Panda, who has studied at 4 countries.
Yes, Delhi. Apart from India, in England, University of Oxford, and also in the US, in Scripps Research in La Jolla, California, and then University of Tokyo in Japan.
And he was also visiting faculty at?
I was visiting faculty at University of Tokyo and also the Technical University in Denmark, in Copenhagen.
Okay. So currently he is teaching at JNU. He is a professor of biotechnology. So this is our first podcast where we will talk about jobs. And specifically in this podcast, we will talk about education and its relation with job. So, Professor Panda, so how can we shape our education in a way which will create jobs in an AI-driven market where everyone has fear about AI, which is taking over their jobs, which will automatically take over their job. They are thinking that. So how can we shape it?
So I think before I start to talk about jobs, AI and future, you also should understand that what is the role of education? And when I mean education, I mean higher education in particular, the college and universities. So let's just divide the scope and the aim of education for different stakeholders. So who is the first stakeholder in education? Students. The second stakeholder, parents. And third stakeholder, the government. Fourth stakeholder, the companies or the industry or someone who is giving you the job. So let's start one by another. If you are a student, what is the aim of education? To get a job, to gain knowledge, but most important, to get a job, to have your livelihood, to earn money. If you are parents, then you are thinking that, am I sending my child to the right college? Am I sending my son or daughter to the right university? Will he or she get the right job with the right amount of money? Will he or she gain knowledge to thrive in this world? And do they have right kind of people for my child to be with? For example, right friend circle, he is not doing drugs, he is not doing wrong things in the college, he has the right teachers. And the third stakeholder is the policymakers of the government. So what is the government thinking? Okay, we are spending these many hundreds of thousands of crores in higher education. Are we creating jobs? Because we live in a democracy, and in any democratically elected government, they have to justify creation of employment. So higher education institutes must provide what is needed to create employment. In addition to creating employment, also if I am the policymaker or the government, I must also say that the higher educational institutions are also innovating. That means coming up with new technologies. We live in an economy where technology is everything.
But do you think it is possible in this age where everything is happening so rapidly, technology is growing so rapidly, innovating is possible? Is it possible for the policymakers?
So I'll come to that question. Let me just finish my earlier thought, because I had covered students, then parents, then the policymakers. The last but not the least are the teachers. If I am the teacher, which I am, what am I thinking when I am teaching students? I'm thinking, am I imparting the right knowledge? Am I teaching the right subject, what I am qualified and have skills? And are the students going to be able to compete with the best in the world? Whatever I'm teaching, it's very difficult for teachers in higher education, particularly the senior ones, to retrain themselves to teach something else. You cannot have a sociologist to teach philosophy and vice versa. We're trained for literally decades to teach and to do research in one subject. That's what we do. But the topmost priority in our head is to teach what we are trained at the highest level so that the students can compete with others. Now, I talked about 4 different stakeholders. Let's come back to the question that you have asked, that is it possible to innovate? And if it's okay, I would like to come back to that question, because with the background that I just gave about what education means for different stakeholders, we can think about, are we doing that? Are we actually satisfying the need of each of these 4 pillars? Students, parents, politicians or the government, and the teachers. Now, you mentioned about innovation. It is possible to create innovative knowledge and products, but not with the system that we have. And I can expand on that. That's what I mean by a different system. Because you mentioned about AI during the introduction, and AI is everywhere right now, right? I mean, before even we know, when by the time you probably edited the video and put it there, AI would catch it and get the keywords, and then somebody else searches thousands of kilometers and miles away and still get that. So even if we don't like AI is there, but there's a little bit, not too much, maybe it's the transformative technology of today, but the infusion of new technology into life is not new. Whenever anything new happens in life, we feel disturbed, obviously. Same thing happened when the automobiles were introduced maybe 50 years back at mass scale. Anytime there is a new technology, there is fear. But AI is not just any new technology. AI is transformative simply because this is more going to touch upon across multiple different sectors. It's not just going to change education. It's not just going to change automotive industry. It's not going to change communication industry. It's not going to change reporting and journalism. It's going to change across. So it's transformative. So we can talk about, how do we modify ourselves, or how do we change our thought process so that our system is ready, students are ready, teachers are ready, the politicians and the government is ready to do what is required. Because again, coming back, the most important aspect of education, which people seldom talk about, is jobs, employment. How they create employment. So the bottom line is, and this is one of the important things that we'll expand on, is, are our educational institutions ready to create jobs? Are they geared towards creating jobs? Are they teaching something for creation of jobs, or they're just teaching something which has nothing to do with jobs? And the most important question, as a devil's advocate, you also should ask, are jobs the only thing which matters for educational institutions? If yes, then are we doing the right thing? If no, what else can we do?
But do you think that the education system, that the way it is designed, it can develop in a rapid manner, that I asked you, in this era? Because how can we shape the education in a way which will provide jobs to students in a where we are teaching them in a traditional manner?
Right. So let me tell you some numbers, and from there draw some conclusions. So there are about, give or take, between 35 to 40 million undergraduates in Indian colleges. So if you take the statistics of these 35 to 40 million undergraduates, about 60% of those, close to 20 million and or more, are going to do a job in their life after their graduation from colleges that has nothing to do with what they studied.
This is because the traditional system they are following.
Because of the system, let's not just call it traditional, the system that which we are in. Now, I'll give you the example. Now, let's divide this education into what I call is skill-based or technical education, and something which is a non-technical education. And what do I mean by technical education? If you want to be an engineer, if you want to study medicine, if you want to study experimental science, you obviously have to go to a college. You have to learn the trade. You can't build a bridge before you know how to build a bridge. There are caveats to that, and I'll come back to that later. We can't operate on a patient unless you actually know the anatomy of the patient, unless somebody has shown you how to do that. You cannot do an experiment in a biology, physics, chemistry lab unless you have done that. So anything that requires skills, technical skills, one goes to college to learn from their professors. Now, you may argue that if college or university education is required for technical fields like engineering, medicine, or experimental science, what about the people that built the famous Konark temple, Aravateshwar temple in Kumbakonam, the famous Taj Mahal, the the Qutub Minar? Did they go to universities? Did they go to Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Stanford? No, they didn't. How did they do that? How did they build something which is of such high mathematical and geometric precision that even today's engineers sometimes may fail? If they haven't gone to college, so I'm refuting myself in the sense that in one way I'm saying technical education requires you to go to college. In another way I'm saying that people didn't go to college and university but doing such marvels. Now they may not have gone to college, but they actually have learned the trades from experts. So what is important, the point that I'm trying to make is, what is important is not degree. What is important is skill. They learn the skill working with the masters. That's college for them. That's university for them. If you are in a journalism school, you probably are learning nothing in your school that you are enrolled in. You learn more by working with a expert journalist, go with him or her, go he or she does the reporting in the field. Nowadays, unfortunately, not many field reporters are there. They're armchair reporters. But if you ask the field reporters, they used to do hard work, the reporters in the village, in the agriculture field, in multiple sectors. So skill is important. Point number one, not degree. So these guys who build the marvels of yesteryears also learn the skills, which you learn in college and university. But there is another important difference, and that is the reason why we need college or university. If I have a great teacher, a teacher can teach maybe 2, 5, 10 students to do great engineering work, or maybe to do great surgery. But how about a country of 1.4 billion people? I need to do it in huge numbers. So skills give you jobs, but skills don't build nation. What builds nation is skill plus scale. Scale. That means I need to have the master in millions. That is what college can do, university can do. This is one of the function of the university and college. That means we can teach multiple people, students at one go, and there are multiple universities. So we are building skills at scale. So when you have skill, you have jobs, but individual jobs or maybe few jobs. But when you have skill at scale, you build nation. And the best example is, until few years back, China did not have LU high-speed rail network. And I'm talking about high speed is something like 300 kilometers or 250 kilometers and above. We don't have a single in India. As you know, we're still in talks and getting ready to build the bullet train, which is the Japanese technology that is coming to India from Ahmedabad to Mumbai. I believe that's the route. And it's called Shinkansen technology, or Japanese bullet train technology. Now, the point I'm trying to make is China, because it built its skill, actually has built 45,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. 45,000 kilometers in less than 20 years. We are keeping or building 500 kilometers in the last 10 years. You see the difference? Our 500 kilometers bullet train is going to be as good as anyone in the world, because we are getting the technology from Japan, and probably I'm sure that in future we will master the technology ourselves. The point is, you see the difference? You have one 500 kilometers, very good, excellent, world's best, versus 45,000 kilometers. That's the difference when you marry skill with scale. Skill with scale. That is where the universities come to picture.
Do we have jobs to provide the people who have skills?
So, Yeah, that's a very good question. Now, before I take that question, let me also tell you how the jobs are formed. Now, I mentioned about technical fields. I mentioned about scientific fields. What about those who are trained in liberal arts? What about those who are trained in history, political science, sociology, philosophy? Now, there are two approaches we can take. Some may say we don't need those subjects. I think they're wrong. We do need those subjects. We need arts, we need humanities, we need sociology, we need social sciences. But the model has to be reversed. And what do I mean by reverse? You think about it. A traffic constable who is doing tireless job sitting in the traffic and pollution in all our Indian cities. A restaurant manager, a office clerk, they all have graduate degrees, right? Because that's the minimum degree you can get any job in our country. Does a traffic constable need a history graduate degree? No. Does he need a political science graduate degree? Does he need a physics graduate degree? Does a office clerk need a philosophy degree? Does a IAS officer needs a degree in English language and civil engineering?
What I think IAS officer need knowledge on everything.
Exactly, knowledge on everything.
So what I'm trying to tell you is,
most jobs outside of the technical fields and scientific fields, which doesn't require specialty knowledge, they don't need to go to college, but they need knowledge. So how about we change the system? We say after high school, you don't need to go to college unless you want to do technical fields, unless you want to be an engineer, a surgeon, an experimental scientist, and other fields also. You say you go to a specialist school to gain skills. For example, if I want to be an IAS officer, and we have already the academies in Missouri for a short-term training, why can't we do a 5-year training? Right after high school, where you teach administration, where you teach law and order, where you teach international affairs, where you teach about home affairs, where you teach about police department, relevant topics. We are already doing this. Where are we doing it? In NDA. The National Defense Academy, who actually, we give degrees from JNU and we are very proud. So, why can't we do the same thing for people who are going, for example, becoming traffic constable? Does a traffic constable need to spend 3 or 4 years studying political science? The answer is no. It's a waste of resources. Whose resources? Yours and mine, and million others, and our parents. Why can't we say that for the traffic constable you can have the high school pass and then go? Why can't we flip the model and say the college, and I'll tell you what I mean by flipping the model. I'm thinking of more of a pyramid scheme. The base of the pyramid, which is the largest, right? You should open more vocational institution. What do you mean by vocational institution? Institution that produce plumbers, carpenters, electricians, masons. These are the highest demand. Every single person that comes to the house to repair our water leakage, to repair electricity short circuit, are basically trained on the job. They didn't go to school. Masons. We need at the base of the pyramid produce hundreds of millions of specialists at this level, which maybe doesn't require also a high school degree, maybe 10th pass. Good enough. But we need to pay them well and we need to have proper training for them. Now, if you go climb up the pyramid, next level comes your traffic inspectors, the IS officers, the police officers. They need to finish their 12th grade and go to specialist college for 5 years, where they study what they need. There are exceptions to it, but in general, the last are going to be the specialist researcher. You can still study history, be a historian. You can still study political science, be a political scientist. Who need this? But not at the number that we have today. That is the reason I mentioned to you nearly 60% of the 40 million undergraduates in Indian colleges today are going to get a job in a field which has nothing to do with what they studied in college. Because the base of the pyramid is irrelevant to their job. And that is the reason we are not creating the job. If we flip this, we will create more jobs who are plumbers. We pay them well. Why can't a plumber be paid same as a assistant professor in a university?
Is it possible in practical ground?
Why not? We have to rethink the model. Why is it not possible? We have to rethink education. Right now, education at the base, we are giving a lot of degrees for people who don't need that degree. It's not creating jobs. So I am not telling to shut down the liberal arts universities. No, I'm not. I am repeatedly telling we need social sciences, we need humanities, but we need to reverse the number. We need to have more numbers of people who are actually job-oriented training. That means skills. Less number of people who do research and who are specialists in a job. Right now it's reversed. How many vocational colleges are there for plumbers versus BA degree?
That's interesting. But in real life example, so in your case, so can you, the scheme that you are proposing, so can you implement that in your house? Can you do with your son or your daughter? Is it possible?
Absolutely possible. Absolutely.
Do you do that?
Yes, I will do that. No doubt I will do that. I had myself taken the unconventional path for my kids, in the sense, they decided not to go to school. I said, fine, yes. And I said, it's totally fine. My point is, education has to be divided in your mind to think it's skill, training, and knowledge. You have to be very clear what is the role of education. And it's all three. But the need of the country is to create jobs and create employment, right? And a lot of people may argue that what about character building? Role of education is also character building. Absolutely. I am not arguing against character building, but if somebody gives me a formula saying that character building only, no job creation, I'm not in favor of that. The need of the hour for India is to create employment. And we can only create employment if we reverse the model. That means we have more colleges who are teaching of skill, practical skills is important, less seats for people who are going to be specialists. Therefore, you will not have there are exceptions to that, but more historians, political scientists, physicists are going to be less in number. So they are going to be the researchers, the specialists. But right now we are producing them in bulk.
Okay.
And a physics graduate is going and doing a restaurant job.
So you're talking about that the only technical fields require a university or colleges, but not the skills. When it comes to liberal arts and other subjects or social sciences, you need skill-based colleges which will teach them skills.
As I'm saying, what we need to do is to reverse the model. That means we have more number of seats for practical skill-based training, less as we go to the top of the pyramid, less number of seats for specialists who want to be a researcher in that field. Okay. There's nothing wrong in that. But you cannot create 30 million physicists and biologists. There are no jobs. But you can create 30 million plumbers, electricians, masons, specialists, like people who work at home. They are in demand. People who make roads, people who make buildings.
Okay.
And that job is of high demand.
Okay.
And right now when India is in the growth path, we are, maybe depending on who you ask and which newspaper you read, it could be anywhere between 4 to 6% of growth annually. If we grow in the same path for another 20 years, we are going to be in extremely short supply of these specialist jobs like plumbers, electricians, masons. These are the guys who need the most, and they have to be well trained, not somebody like, just trained on the job.
Okay.
So we create universities and colleges and vocational schools for them. And the number of seats that exist in today's colleges for liberal arts, for sciences where it doesn't create jobs, has to be reduced.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. So I'm saying reverse the model so that, and character building goes hand in hand. Of course, character building and knowledge are important. But a lot of people get confused. What is the job or what is the role of a college and university? Is it to give training or is it to create knowledge? Actually, it's both. But what I'm saying is that the role to create training programs and train more people is more important than the role to create knowledge. Just the balance has to be maintained in favor of jobs, because today, if you ask yourself and anybody at your age, would say, how do we Indians choose the field after school? It's all based on jobs, isn't it? So why engineering medicine is always very demanding in India? Why?
We require engineers.
Not required because there are jobs there.
Yeah.
So why people who are actually plumbers, electricians, house repair guys in places like in the US and Western Europe on heavy demand? Because there are jobs there. They can create, they had jobs and they're very well paying jobs.
But it is not a respected job here and you're not paid that much.
Absolutely. And we have to change that. We have to think of changing that. I mean, I guess slowly things are changing, that we need to do more in our own respective houses. You have to change our mindset that job is a job. I mean, I can also tell you one thing. When we say it's not respected, I am sure that if tomorrow, like a journalist, each journalist are paid 30 lakhs rupees a year, all of a sudden everybody wants their sons to be journalist. So it's not, respect in our country is very proportional to the ability to get a good, well-paying job.
Okay.
We can change that equation slowly, but it takes time. But
A plumber may get 3 lakh per annum.
the plumber is already getting 3 lakhs per annum.
Yeah.
They get 3 lakhs per month, right? That's what they make outside. But my point is that it's a skilled job. Imagine if a plumber does a bad job, you actually have leakages all over. So a skill is a skill. It doesn't matter whether you're building an automobile or you are a plumber. They're both different types of skills, but skills. We have to take skills seriously. And we have to create our universities and colleges to teach skills. Go up lesser number of seats for specialist jobs, scientists, where the research, and everybody doesn't have to do research.
You talk with several educationists in your podcast that you do in your YouTube channel. So what are the insights you get from there?
See, I think I can tell you that two different models right now from my experience I can see. One is the American model, one is the Chinese model. And the European model is somehow in between. I would say it's more American model. I'll tell you a little bit about what's the difference. There is no shortcut to success. The American model is very simple. Meritocracy. And what do I mean by meritocracy? It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you have gone to school. Yeah, it does matter actually sometimes, but to gain the entry, not beyond that. Your absolute merit in getting the job done is of paramount importance. And that is the reason a country like US, which always welcomed immigrants, although I don't know with Trump in power how long that will continue. Yeah, but so far they have, and I think he's not stupid. He also understands the power of immigration. But like good immigrants, talented immigrants. So they opened the border. They got the best and the brightest. They have the best universities in the world. But they let people compete. That is, if you are a better reporter than me, my father might have been the managing director of the best TV channel, but people watch you, not me. Because when we both do the show, they see that you are a better reporter.
It's happening in this era though because of digital media.
It is. Yeah. It is. Like the YouTube channels, a lot of people are having millions of viewers. But I have my one inquirance about the digital media because sometimes I think a lot of trash getting produced, a lot of trash getting viewed. I guess that happened every time, but it's easy to be giving hundreds of millions of viewers. And I mean, I don't have to name you, but a lot of people have millions of viewers, but they just talk trash sometimes. But sometimes trash sells, right? So, American model, what I was telling you is that respect to meritocracy. Compete. If you are good, you go to the top. That is the reason you have so many Indians as the CEOs. How did they make it? They were good because they were ambitious. Now, second is the Chinese model. Chinese model, very interestingly, is different, and that works for them. Now, for the last 20 years, China has been going on an average of 7-8%, sometimes close to 10%, sometimes close to 4.5%, on an average about 7%, 7 to 8%. That extraordinary economic growth has given China enough foreign reserves. Actually, they're the country with now $3 trillion foreign reserves, which is just astoundingly big. but they're also smart. The Communist Party of China, which is universally hated in the West, particularly US, and also there's a lot of misconception in India about them. But there's one thing very good. They realize that if people's livelihood, that means people's ability to get jobs, to have a good life, to earn money, if that goes down, there will be unrest in the society. If there is unrest in the society, it's going to flip over to our party. So CCP might be very authoritarian, but CCP is very smart in keeping people happy. And how do they keep people happy? To make sure that the economy keeps running and the earning capacity of people goes up. And what did they do? They invested heavily in their educational institution. If you go to a university in China, and I'm not even talking about the top university, I'm talking about the second, third, fourth tier university. Many people in India have no idea. China has actually grown leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. Their best right now is competing with the best in the US. Okay. Right? How did they do it? Simple. As I told you, the model is different. They pumped resources, money. They put infrastructure in place. They put people in place. They get them money. And they knowingly fully well that their efficiency is not that higher than the US. Because US took 50, 60, 70 years to do it. China can't. There's no shortcut. China can't do that in 6, 7, 10 years. So the Chinese model is put a lot of money, knowing that 80% of it is probably West. But those 20% is good. The reason it's good, because China's base is a lot more bigger than US base. So 20% of 20 million is much better than the US's 90% of 2 million. So this is Chinese model. So US model, China. Europe has slightly different model because of the history, because I think Europe is obviously old. Western Europe, with a history and education and research for the last many centuries, they are slow and steady, and they have evolved to a point where there is more work-life balance. Recently there was a lot of controversy about Narayan Murthy talking about 80, 90 hours work.
Also reacted to that.
And from Latin to brain, insane like that, watching bike and all. I think apart from those jokes that he probably cracked, that what Murthy, and again, I haven't spoken to Narayan Murthy about it, but I can guess what he meant. He was probably misunderstood. Obviously, working 90 hours is just insane. You need to have some balance. But what he probably meant is that we are at an inflection point in our country where we need to work hard. We need to put our 100%. We need to pull our weight a little better. That's probably what he means. He means working hard. Theoretically, like if you take exactly what he said and try to be very critical, that's a separate thing. But the point I'm trying to make is that we have to work hard in this country because our resources are limited and we need to put right policies in place. Unfortunately, in our education sector, we don't have resources. And it's a completely different topic, and we can talk about it maybe some other time, about privatization of education and how that is impacting jobs. Because ultimately that also impacts jobs. And so I think right now, if I were the Prime Minister, I would just put all my money in a single mouth, which is education. Get your people educated. Once people are educated, they will find ways to earn money. But give them right education. Give them a lot of vocational, practical, skill-based education. Have fewer institutions who does research in their subjects, but not too many. But have too many institutions at the bottom that provide skills.
So we will leave it there. So provide your population education. That is the mantra.
Yes,
that you are providing.
So provide education. Put all your money in education.
Okay. So this is the first episode of our job podcast, which is primarily based on jobs and education. So we will leave it there, and we will soon come back.